good afternoon or good morning, depending on what time it is, wherever you're joining us. Thanks for being here and making the time. My name is Carolina Kirby-Lucier. I'm with Allstacks, and I'm gonna kick things off, just give you a couple of logistics here and introduce you to the panelists that are part of our live demo. We have the Measure What Matters series because lots of people have had questions about how our platform and solution actually works. So we wanted to offer this to you guys to show you what it's like in action. And today specifically, we're going to be focusing on using data to manage up and down and set expectations accordingly. This live demo will be 30 minutes or less. We'd like to be respectful of your time. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce you to your speakers, and they can give you a bit more information about Allstacks if you're not familiar with us. And then at the end, we will have some time for questions and answers. So welcome. So nice to be here with you, Jeremy and Chad.
Thanks, Carolina. Yeah, and welcome to everybody that's here watching this. As Carolina said, one of the things that we really care about at Allstacks is making sure that, we measure what matters. And the whole reason that we do that is to create alignment between all parties. I'm co-founder and CTO. And one of the interesting roles that I play in the company is both having to understand the nitty-gritty details of how things are built and get across the line, and also translate and communicate those not just to other executives, but also to other business units that may not even understand how to write software or the process of building software. And Allstacks is a lifesaver in keeping track of all of that. So before we get in, I wanted to give a little bit of background for those who may not understand who we are, what we do, and the product that we offer. Allstacks is a tool that centralizes data from all of the products that you use today to build software. So think your Jiras, your GitHubs, your Circle CIs, your other build tools. And we take all that data and generate reports that help you understand what's currently active, what's stuck, what you're making progress on, where your attention is going, and try to centralize all of these engineering and product KPIs into one place to help you make decisions and communicate that information to everyone in the company. So with me today is basically my right-hand man for managing all of this, Chad. He is our technical product manager here, and he really helps run a lot of the day-to-day things that happen at Allstacks and spends a whole lot of time in the product. And I'll let him give a little bit of background on what he's kind of responsible for and how we work together.
Thank you, Jeremy. As he said, my name is Chad Girard, and I'm the technical project manager here at Allstacks. That kind of covers a wide swath of responsibilities. First things first, probably what I spend a lot of my time with is working with our developers, making sure that they have the right requirements, making sure that any concerns that they have are appropriately recorded and communicated up to our product team. I do a lot of work with our wonderful designer, Graham, on making sure that everything that is mocked is also translated into requirements, that we have approvals, that we set the right expectations with customers, with our product team. I'm also kind of our first line of defense when it comes to end user acceptance testing, as well as smoke testing our platform and making sure that all of our release notes are prepared. If you have a chance to read those, I often make fun of Jeremy in those whenever he codes without following the appropriate process. And then I suppose what I do the most of is setting expectations. And I think that kind of brings us into the product and how I use that, both to educate myself on where we are, but also to make sure I can communicate that appropriately with Jeremy and the rest of the team. So I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's all right.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. So I think we want to get started by jumping into one of our most important features, which is the portfolio report. For those of you that aren't familiar, we allow users to take any initiative or epic or planned work that's happening across all the tools they have connected and track it in one place. A couple of key things to pay attention to here is we show you what the progress is. We show you how activity and scope is changing. And pretty importantly, we show you the forecasted end date. We'll talk more about that as time goes on and we dig into some of these. But this particular report is basically what I look at for understanding where things are. And this gives me, along with all the details that Chad spends his time collecting, a full picture of where things are, where risks are, and where dates are likely to be missed or things are likely to slip. Our scope is about to balloon out of proportion and cause issues for delivery. So I think one of the places we can actually start on is picking one of these particular epics and digging in and see where it's going. At Allstacks, we have a couple of different, I guess you could call them ceremonies, where we use this report at. One of the ones that I actually like to review this in is our engineering team meeting, where we start digging into particular epics, seeing if we think that the dates are correct, incorrect, understanding where things have slipped, where our assumptions have changed. And this would actually be a conversation that Chad and I have every week already. We may have already talked about a lot of these, but we'll rehash some of it for you and skip some of the investigation and fact finding that we've already done. So maybe we can start with this one at the top here, Chad, the insights rebuild.
Absolutely. So as Jeremy said, we're here on the portfolio report. And the one thing that I really like about this is that it will give me a sanity check to say, hey, as a team, we put that we thought we were going to be done on October 29th, but our forecasted end date is a little bit later. And when I have questions and need to see more detail, Jira has lanes and they do have some reporting, but really I want to see things in an aggregated and concise view.
If it's so late, I'll get aggravated.
Yes, exactly. And so what that allows me to do is if I click on my title here, I'm able to go into what is called the Milestone Report. And the Milestone Report really is the more detailed view of what is happening within a body of work. So I'm able to, up at the top, see that of all of our issues, 70% of them are completed. We've got 13 left. It looks like after our initial start date, we actually did increase scope quite a bit as we got more details, as we found out more things that we wanted to. So that kind of explains why dates were pushing back.
Yeah, and this kickoff question that I would usually ask is, we still seem to have some time left before this is supposed to be done. The target's October 29th, but we're already saying that it's slipped by a little bit over one business week. So my first question would really for the team be, why do we think that is, and try to get to the definition?
Absolutely. And one of the ways that I would follow up on that is like, well, I need a snapshot of, it's great to know what scope was initially there, what scope has been added, but I want to know what's there now. And so that directs me generally to go to the process stage. So, similar to like your swim lanes, this lets me see that on a particular day, where were my items in flight? So I can see here that I have a couple items that are in code review. Some are in QA complete, some are in design. And when I'm looking at, for us and our process, looking at things that are in flight, when I see that something is still in creating requirements or in design, that is a red flag for me. That says, okay, we've missed something from the scoping process. We've gotten some feedback. We need to review this. We need to make sure if these cards actually still belong in this body of work. And that's where my job as a project manager comes in to either work with the product team to get clarity, to work with the development team to determine if this work can be removed, and then make sure that there's nothing that's blocking the work but just hasn't been communicated. What also is great about the view here on the Milestone Report is alert summaries. So I'm able to see where in our process we've gotten hung up. So when we say that something is stuck in a particular place, for example, it says that, okay, this item was in creating requirements longer than expected. I should look at those items to make sure that we get them moving along. And I can click on all of our alerts, and our alerts will show us what items are there and are still in creating requirements. And then if I want to dig in even further to really try to figure out what's sticking with one card, I'm able to actually open up all of those details without going directly into Jira. So I can see that it has these alerts on it. It has bounce backs. So bounce backs are typically what happens when something goes from like in progress back to on deck. And then if I really want to see all of the details of the card, I can go here to activity. I can see all of the changes that I've been making. Looks like I've been the one doing all of the editing on this card, so I probably should follow up with Sean, our assigned developer, on it. And then if I need to, I can also click on the link here to go directly into Jira if I need to make a comment, if I need to change anything directly on the card itself. But ultimately, with what I'm going to communicate to Jeremy, I'd say, after looking at what is currently remaining, it seems that we do have a lot of items that are in code review. We probably need to make sure that developers are getting those processed in a timely manner. Looks like a lot of our items are already in QA complete. And then I would need to do some investigation for some of these items that are still in design. We left some of these here. I already know that most of these have to be reviewed and removed because they're redundant with what we've learned over time. So ultimately, we'll probably see more in this issues removed count, decreasing our overall scope. But that would give me the confidence to say that based on what I know is in flight and with the people that we have assigned, I still do feel relatively optimistic that we're going to hit close to our October 29th date. But it looks like Allstacks might be looking at the forecasting based on what's actually there in Jira. And that once I clean that up, I imagine we'll actually tighten our timeline up to what is actually expected.
Great. And, with a report like that, I'm able to go back and say, okay, I actually have confidence in this. And it seems like what's missing is we haven't done some of the cleanup that we need for this particular epic. We'll have a follow-up review meeting. We'll talk to, the product manager, designer, developer to make sure that we get everything cleaned up appropriately. And we should actually see this update as soon as we make those changes. So that lets us kind of gut check how we feel about this. And we have some very discrete actions that we took away. We know what we need to do. And I'm okay with this. I know how to communicate this out, and I still have confidence that we're actually going to meet our date. And why Allstacks is saying that we're not.
That's absolutely right. And the one thing that I will also note that I really like, it's kind of a love-hate relationship I have with this report, is that it doesn't hide anything. So if you're in Jira and you accidentally leave something in your backlog as opposed to having it on your board, Jira will kind of hide that from your day-to-day view. But here I'm able to see all of the items regardless of their backlog status in Jira. And it really is easy to expose. When I have that conversation with Jeremy, Jeremy says, well, it looks like you've got all these extra cards out there. Well, that means as a project manager, I probably need to get my act together and actually get to cleaning these up later today.
Come on, Chad, you're dropping the ball.
I always do. All right.
Just kidding. So yeah, now that you understand exactly what's behind all of these details and estimates, we scan this report at a high level and look for these aberrations. I know that my team and Chad is able to fully understand what's going on in each of these epics and can really start getting to the meat of things and make progress and unblock things. So normally what I would do is, start kind of my exploration here and look for things that are red, like this resources page improvement down here. And, probably during our meeting, I would pull aside the people that were on it, chat, and say, okay, why are we late? What's going on with this?
Well, then another nice thing about the portfolio report is that you get that at a glance to see if there's been progress or if things have been stalling. So for example, this with upgrading endpoints to support users and tags, I know that we haven't focused developers on it lately, but as I scroll down, I can see what's actually getting progress, such as resource page improvement, where we're late, we're projected to come, we're already past the original planned end date. It looks like we're going to finish this tomorrow. Our scope is dropped appropriately, but I want to see more of those details about, okay, what gets us across the line? So I click in, again, I go to the Milestone Report. I see that we have had a little bit of scope added, but really not a lot in the grand scheme of epics. But I want to see what's remaining, like what's out there. I need to answer that question for Jeremy of, do we feel confident, we're already late, but do we feel confident that we're going to meet the forecasting? And so I look at the items that are remaining, our issues remaining. And here I can see that I've got 2 items, one's in QA and one's in QA complete. QA complete is basically our phase that we have right before deploying. So I don't feel like I need to worry about that card. It's just truly waiting for us to do the next production deploy, probably literally tomorrow. And then it looks like we have something else in QA. And as I said, our QA, I'm generally the first line of defense for that. So it's another thing that I turned out that I need to make sure to look at. So when we have our deploy window tomorrow, this can get out with it and our customers can experience our new functionality. But it's in this case, it's a pretty nice and easy way to say, yep, it's on me. We don't need to worry about refocusing developers unless something goes catastrophically wrong in the QA process. We should have it out tomorrow.
And this is great for me. Thanks, Chad, for going through this. One of the things that I need to know, as the leaders, one of the leaders of the engineering team, is how exactly this date changes and we think it will change given this new information. So typically what we would see is if we find, say, an epic like this that we see is late or will be late, we take this opportunity to reevaluate with the stakeholders and the people working on that issue exactly what we think the new date will be. And that kind of gives us a full summary once we update all these on the portfolio report of the new dates, understanding all the things that we have known that have changed and all of the extenuating circumstances that may have arisen. And that arms me with a lot of really powerful information to go back to the company and say, hey, we know we're going to miss this. We know we're going to miss this date. Here's why, and here's what we think the new date is. And one of the really powerful things about this is it changes the conversation. We're no longer trying to argue with the product team about why this particular technical card is really difficult or why we're struggling with our QA process or builds. We're talking the same language. And we view dates not as anything that's punitive. If you're very agile, you don't think of those as really hard deadlines in most cases, but they are a common language that everyone understands. We know what our definition of something being delivered is as a company. We know how it's defined, and we can talk about when we get to that point. And it's really important to have those conversations because the rest of the company, in a lot of cases, depends on particular features getting shipped. Marketing efforts may kick off for major feature releases. There may be customers waiting for a particular bug fix or a particular feature so that they can actually get fully onboarded or get to their next level of value creation. And this gives me a lot of confidence in both the dates, understanding if anything across our process changed that would in fact impact that, and a really convenient way to communicate those changes and have those conversations. So I spend a lot of time living at the portfolio report and having these kind of first level conversations of initiatives with Chad and the rest of the team so that I can then go back and somewhat manage expectations, but also mostly be collaborative with the rest of the team about when things actually change. And that's the value that we hope to provide to all of our customers is we want to help everyone understand that there is a common language, and it's really important to stay aligned. And if you're the leader of a technical team, I'm sure you struggle with the same things that I do. You have to understand all the nitty-gritty details of why this particular Python package is going to cause this particular effort to be delayed by, a month, and also have to translate that to, maybe your head of customer success as to why that means that this particular customer is not going to get their feature for another 2 weeks. And it's a really hard place to be, especially when you have to do all this exploration and discovery yourself. And when it's all in one place, it makes that story so much compacter, and you can answer those questions almost entirely on the fly. And that's why we're building Allstacks, to help people have those conversations better.
I would agree with that. And at my level, the one thing I've noticed since working with Allstacks to build Allstacks is that I spend a lot less time than I have in previous positions giving just blanket status updates. Almost all of the conversations happen of Jeremy already gets that status update, so we can actually focus down on the action that needs to be taken, as opposed to spending hours each week developing reports or status update emails or anything like that. It really just gives you the opportunity to have it all in one place and really get down to focusing on the work. It lets me create new stories. It lets me take care of testing, hopefully update the cards that I need to update. But I spend less time doing just that really generic high-level reporting because Allstacks takes care of all of that for me.
Which is great. Chad has plenty more things on his plate than having to spend multiple hours each week typing things into an Excel sheet.
We do, and we should talk about that later.
Awesome. So I think with that, is there anything else we need to cover, Chad? Or should we open the floor to questions?
I think we should open the floor to questions. I don't think I need to air any more of my dirty laundry out in a public venue such as this. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to take them.
Yeah, well, thank you both so much for walking through this and giving us examples of day-to-day use. I think that that will really help our customers understand how to use the data to, as you said, kind of have some meaningful conversations and guide the conversation instead of maybe fumbling through or just not having the concrete info to point to, or not feeling confident about what the future may hold. I think it might be good to touch on how this information can be shared. Is there a way that folks can invite their team members to see this info, or is there a way to share reports internally?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to touch on that. So one of the things we do with Allstacks is we encourage everyone that has to consume this reporting to be invited to the platform, have visibility, be able to see all the different reports. And, you know, I spend a whole lot of time in the portfolio report, and we have some navigation for people to create their own views of the world. So if you take a look at the tabs up here at the top that we're looking at, we've been looking at our shared team milestone context, which is, you know, a way of viewing the world that everyone can see that creates alignment. But there may be a case where, say, I have a particular project or set of projects that I'm tracking, or Chad may have a slightly different set of projects that he's tracking, or you may have a situation where you have 2 or 3 different project managers for the same set of work, each with different epic responsibilities. And we have the ability for each of those folks to set up their own personal set of milestones that they can track, in addition to the team milestones. I don't think we have any set up here for this particular project, but we also allow you to pin a number of different things to this particular report so that you can communicate to different stakeholders what's going on. You can track things by label, by Jira component, down to the project and sprint level even. And depending on your purview of the world, you may want to track different resolutions of things. In a larger company, I may be tracking things at an initiative level. Chad may be tracking those initiatives at an epic level. Someone else may be tracking those at a story level. And we can each have our own views of the world. And additionally, when you have multiple pods or multiple teams, each of those teams or pods can actually have different projects and different sets of reports for those. So we offer a ton of flexibility around how you can slice these reports and expose those to various people in the company.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying, Jeremy. The next question is, I think you touched on tools and integrations. Can you talk a little bit more about what Allstacks integrates with and what needs to be done within that tool in order to see value on the Allstacks side?
Yeah, I'll start us off and then I'll let Chad. I think he has some very strong feelings about Jira, as do most people. But we, as I mentioned early on, we tend to connect with a couple of different types of tools. So we look at your source code management tools. That would be your GitHubs, your GitLabs, your Bitbuckets, your Azure DevOps. We look at your project management tools, which basically all the same set, plus your Jira's, your Clubhouses, your pivotal trackers. And we also look at your build tools like your Circle CI, your Jenkins, and the pipelines features built into your source code management tools as well. All of that data gets pulled together to help create a view of activity and progress in each of these reports. And I think Chad can talk about some of the details of managing that data within those tools around how Allstacks looks at it. But I think maybe the overarching summary there is you don't really have to do much. We look at what you have configured, we look at all the relationships you have defined, and we actually use that to build reporting on. So there's not a lot of additional configuration that has to happen if you're already using a well-defined management structure.
Agreed. And as Jeremy said, I do have many, many strong opinions about Jira. None of them are positive. No, but that's not inherently true. I do enjoy certain parts of Jira. I like that I can organize it. I like that there's really nice, easy ways to edit cards and things like that. But there are certain features that we definitely would recommend to kind of get the best experience. The connecting is very much so plug and play, but Allstacks is very good about exposing the problems in your process. And I mean that in a great way, not in a punitive way, where, for example, the portfolio report here is going to let me know if I've actually set an end date for my work in Jira. So for our Insights Rebuild Epic, for example, I need to make sure that I actually have an end date, that we think that it's realistic and it's based on our team giving estimates. That provides a lot more power when you're looking at things like this item that's behind. If it just gives me a forecasted end date, but I don't have a goal, then I'm not really measuring against something. I also really like that when we're looking at different types of milestones, you can actually look at like labels versus epics. And one that I like to use that I don't have in this demo is looking at card types. So for example, if I want to look at my bug card types, I like to keep this pinned up as a running item, so that I can see over time, what are my bugs looking like? Are we continuously making progress against bugs? If I ever see something like this stall out, that gets to be another warning sign for me that we need to make sure that we're pivoting and focusing on those things that matter. I think the other thing that is nice with how I work is the ability to actually see if there is code work done versus just Jira cards moving around, because nothing really matters until it's actually in the system. And that allows me to look at the various items that are in play, and I can see what activity there has been on those cards, but then I can also see if there's actually pull requests or other activity outside of having to go into Bitbucket myself. I don't think that you'll generally find that a lot of project managers want to spend a lot of time there. And frankly, we're often not smart enough to even understand it. So we just like to know that if there's actually work being done, there's actually code being committed. It helps as opposed to just looking at Jira cards moving across your process stage.
Yeah, and it gives a slightly different home depending on the particular purview. A project manager may care about status updates on tickets, whereas an engineering manager may want to make sure that we're actually creating pull requests and getting code integrated. And this kind of centralizes it all into the same goal and helps you all get to the same place.
Absolutely.
All right. I think we're getting close to time, right, Carolina?
Yeah, we do have maybe time for one more question if anybody has anything else. Otherwise, we can just wrap up. And maybe we've addressed all of those questions. Of course, if you think of anything else after the call, we're always available to answer questions, concerns after the fact. Thanks again, Jeremy and Chad, for taking the time to demo all of those features and functionalities. I will be sending a copy of the recording to everyone so that you have it for reference, and feel free to share with your colleagues or anybody that you think would find it useful. And we look forward to continuing to work with you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.